Russia has withdrawn its ships from the Tartus base in Syria. It's unclear what to do with them for now. Apparently, there are no agreements with the new authorities yet, so the fate of the Russian bases remains uncertain. The pace of Russian forces' advance has been slowing for the second consecutive week. This could be due to a shortage of equipment and personnel, the strengthening of Ukrainian defenses, geographical challenges, or perhaps all of these factors combined. Nevertheless, according to some reports, Russia has captured the village of Shevchenko in the Pokrovsk direction, bringing the battle for Pokrovsk closer. In the Kursk region, Russia attacks continue actively, but yield no significant results aside from heavy losses in personnel and equipment. Russia is in a hurry with time running out, but imagine that the Russian armed force could capture the Kursk region by January 20th. Coincidence with Trump's returns seems highly improbable. Additionally, Marines of the 155th Brigade are now being punished not only by Ukrainian forces, but also by Russian ones. One soldier shared how his commander abused him, trying to send him into battle while injured. The blogger Mikhail Polynkov revealed that the Russian army is systematically recording missing soldiers as deserters, labeling them as having abandoned their posts to underreport losses and avoid paying compensations. Russian soldiers have published a video demanding an apology from Ramzan Kadyrov for his remarks about Bastrykin and Kolokoltsev. As I mentioned earlier, there is a noticeable decline in fear of the Chechen warlord. Meanwhile, Putin has promoted General Apti Alaudinov for his heroic defense of the Kursk region, and no, that is not a joke. All this and more in today's video. You're on Michael Nacke's channel, so subscribe, put your like and write a comment. So we are starting the video. Formation of the interim government in Syria. The interim government in Syria will be formed by Mohammed al-Bashir, the head of Salvation Government of Syria, controlled by Islamist group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. The decision to entrust al-Bashir with forming a transitional government was made following his meeting with Hidayah's leader Abu al-Juani and current Syrian Prime Minister Ghazi al-Jalil, who assumed responsibility for governing the country after Bashar Assad fled to Moscow. Russian military flights from Syria, Antonov An-124 aircraft conducted at least 3 flights from Syria to Russia in recent days. 2 Antonov An-124 Russian planes returned to Russia from Syria on Monday night, taking a detour through Egypt, Saudi Arabia and Iran. For one of these aircraft, this marked its second flight from Syria in recent days. This could be just a portion of the flights carried out by the largest transport aircraft of the Russian Air Force in Syria. During recent days, the crew of such planes do not always activate their transponders during flights. At least 2 additional flights were conducted by military Il-76 aircraft. However, it's unlikely that these flights represent an urgent evacuation of Russian military bases from Syria, as hundreds of flights would be required for such an operation. Russian military ships have evacuated the Russian Navy logistics facility in Tartus, as seen in satellite image published on Twitter by journalist Mark Rutov. The vessels are currently archored 8 kilometers west of Tartus, as determined by OSINT analysis MT Anderson. Anderson also noted that 3 Russian grain carriers involved in the transportation of stolen Ukrainian grain, Matros Pozinich, Matros Shevchenko and Mikhail Nenashev, have stopped in the Mediterranean near the southern coast of Turkey and northern Cyprus, occupied by Turkey. They appear hesitant to enter the port of Tartus, where, according to military analyst Igor Levin, the grain was usually transferred to other ships and sold under the guise of being Syrian. In Tartus, there were 5 military ships and a submarine. The first signs of a potential evacuation appeared on December 2nd, when the auxiliary vessels Yelnya was seen leaving the port. The base had been used by the Russian Navy since 2020. On December 9, TASS citing sources reported that leaders of Syrian opposition groups guaranteed the safety of Russian military bases and diplomatic missions in the country. The opposition currently fully control the Latakia province, where Tartus and the Russian Khmeimim Ramim airbase are located. Syrian opposition forces entered Tartus on December 8, taking over government buildings without resistance. No official announcement has been made about the withdrawal of Russian troops from the area. While the fate of Russian troops in Syria hang in the balance, one particular evacuee seems to have it covered. Relatives of Bashar Assad purchased 19 apartments in Moscow city for 40 million between 2013 and 2018. Journalists from the Financial Times obtained documents about this purchase in 2019. According to the documents, 13 properties are owned by Assad's cousin Half Mahlur of companies under the control. 2 apartments were purchased by the wife of another cousin, Rami Mahmoud. 4 of these properties are used as residence, including one owned by twin brother Ehab and Ivat Makhalov, also cousins of Assad. Afis Makhalov also purchased a 3-room apartment a few minutes' drive from Moscow city. Experts valued the Assad's family Moscow real estate at $40 million in 2019, when the Financial Times report was published. The transactions were mostly conducted through offshore companies to which the properties were officially registered. The BBC identified the names of 543 Russian military personnel and Wagner Group contractors killed in operation in Syria between 2015 and 2024. This includes dozens of specialists from elite units such as Special Operations Forces, FSB Special Forces, GRU, intelligence operatives, and military pilots. The names of all Russian military personnel were established using open sources, including media reports, social networks, and data from cemeteries and military memorials. The deaths of 346 Wagner Group personnel in Syria were confirmed using open sources and international company documents obtained by journalists through leaks between 2016 and 2022. Actual Russian losses in Syria may be higher, as the collect data is likely incomplete. Officially, Russia acknowledged 116 military casualties in Syria, with the last statement made by the Ministry of Defense in the spring of 2019. Israel Minister Katz ordered the army to take full control of the buffer zone between Israel and Syria. In his statement, the minister also instructed the creation of a security zone free of heavy strategic weapons and terrorist infrastructure in southern Syria, including areas outside the buffer zone that could pose a threat to Israel. He emphasized the need to immediately prevent and suppress the resumption of arms smuggling routes from Iran to Lebanon through Syria on Syrian territory and at the border crossing points. Katz also stated that the destruction of strategic weapons in Syria would continue, including stock of surface-to-air missiles, air defense system, cruise and ballistic missiles, long-range rockets, and coastal missile systems. The minister directed the military to establish contact with the Druze community and other population groups in southern Syria. In connection with this, the head of Israel military intelligence, Shlomi Blinder, met with the leader of the Druze community, Sheikh Mowaff Tarif, to discuss the situation in Syria. The Israeli Air Force continued to carry out airstrikes on military targets in Syria. Targets struck in the past 2 weeks include the port of Latakia and air defense position in the area, Dara, an ammunition depot on the Homs-Damascus highway, warehouse of pro-Iranian information in Saladik Zambar near Damascus, a scientific research center in Damascus, the Sheret Air Base in Homs province. Fighting continues in the city of Maghbi in northern Syria between the Turkish-backed Syrian National Army SNA and Kurdish military forces of the Syrian Democratic Forces SDF. The SNA is supported by Turkish artillery, while the Kurds are using Kuavs to drop explosives. Reports indicate that SNA fighters masquerade personnel at a Kurdish military hospital they had captured. Meanwhile, CDF forces opened fire on protesters in their resort, which they recently occupied following the withdrawal of regime forces. Local residents are demanding their withdrawal and the handover of the city to the Islamist opposition. 4 fatalities have been. New brigades from partners. The United States will train a brigade of the armed forces of Ukraine in Germany. This was announced by Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky in his evening address. Also, right now in Europe, specifically in Germany, the American side is training a Ukrainian brigade, and this is important, Zelensky stated. Additionally, he mentioned ongoing negotiations with France for the training of a 2nd brigade in France, following the model of the 155 mechanized brigade named after Anna of Kiev. The president also spoke about discussions on jointly equipment a Ukrainian brigade with contribution from Northern Europe, European and Baltic countries. The head of the Elenovka penal colony, the DPR, Sergei Yevsukov, died on the morning on December 9 in central Donetsk after his car exploded. Yevsukov's wife, who has in the car, sustained several injuries, including the loss of a leg. She was hospitalized in critical condition. The explosion occurred at the intersection of Universitetskaya Street and Komsomolsky Avenue. Preliminary reports indicate that approximately 100 grams of plastic explosive equivalent to TNT were placed under the vehicle's chassis. Sergei Yevsukov had been accused by Ukrainian authorities of involvement in the death of Ukrainian prisoners of war from the Azov regime held at the Elenovka penal colony. On July 29, 2022, an explosion in the colony killed 53 Ukrainian prisoners of war and injured 130 others. The so-called DPR authorities and the Russian Ministry of Defense claim the colony was hit by a Ukrainian strike using American HIMARS rocket artillery system. However, a CNN investigation based on video footage, photos, satellite images, and expert analysis found the likelihood of HIMARS strike on the colony to be negligible. The Ukrainian side asserted that the explosion of Elenovka was a terrorist attack orchestrated by Russia to intimidate Western countries and disrupt arms deliveries. Propagandists had announced the provocation a month before the incident, and shortly before the explosion, Ukrainian prisoners of war were relocated to hangars on the colony's premises that had not previously housed inmates. Among those killed in the colony in 2024 were members of the Azov regiment who, according to the insider, were never intended to be exchanged. Survivors of the attack, including former prisoners, confirm this. Denis Prokopenko, commander of the Azov brigade, commented on Yevsukov's death as follows. Once again, shed glory to Ukraine, and I will mobilize the troops to crush them all into the asphalt. There is no such country as Ukraine. This was the last thing I heard from the degenerate. Every word returned to him in TNT equivalent. Tracking and punishing criminals who cannot be brought to justice through international tribunals is a critical task for the Ukrainian state and its security forces, Prokopenko said in his post. History has many examples of executioners and murderers failing to escape justice and live out their days in peace. Nations with dignity and respect for their citizens ensure this. The enemy must feel constant danger, not only on the front lines but also in the rear. Those responsible for the torture and killing of our prisoners of war, as well as for the destruction of peaceful Ukrainian cities, must remember that none of their crimes will go unpunished. They have nowhere to run, and today they have been shown that. We will never forgive the vile murder of our 53 comrades in Elenovka who could not be defeated on the battlefield, leaving the enemy with no choice but to blow up defenseless people in their sleep. Punishing those responsible for war crimes is a complex and painstaking task that will take time. Retribution will not be instant, but it is inevitable. Executioners will live under perpetual tension and anxiety and fear. Whatever it takes, 1 year, 2 years, or 10, they will eventually be held accountable. An ordinary Monday morning or a routine commute will become their last. So that's what Prokopenko said in his Facebook, and I agree with him. The Ukrainian Navy and Security Service of Ukraine, SBU, have shared details about their recent operation in the Black Sea. The war at sea is becoming increasingly technological, and Ukrainian naval drones or unnamed surface vessels are proving to be more dangerous. On December 7, the Ukrainian Navy announced strikes on a gas platform in the Black Sea, where Russian surveillance systems are stationed. Footage from the operation showed the use of UAVs equipped with FPV drones, likely for the first time in the full-scale war between Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine volunteer Sergei Sternenko showcased one such FPV drone. Independent researcher Mikhail Polynkov noted that the USVs used in the operation features trimaran-style hulls with large outriggers on their side. On the bow, their impact detonators are visible. The SBU described a raid on the Crimean Bridge as follows. Naval drones from the SBU engaged Russian helicopters and aircraft. Exclusive footage of the special operation Sea Baby in the Kerch Strait. Details of the new unique SBU operation have emerged. During the night of December from 5 to 6, a group of SBU Sea Baby naval drones engaged in combat with Russian helicopters, aircraft and Raptor patrol boats, attempting to intercept them. These naval drones were developed through joint fundraising efforts with United 24, Monobank, Oleg Gorokhovsky, Sergei Sternenko and Igor Lachin in February on this year. The Russian pilots considered themselves the hunters, expecting an easy catch, but they became the prey as the naval drones opened a retaliatory fire. Latest Sea Baby drones were equipped with large-caliber machine guns featuring ballistic automatic targeting and locking system. Intercepted Russian radio communications confirm fatalities and injuries among helicopter crews. The helicopters themselves sustained significant damage and now require major repairs. Additionally, the SBU drones struck a barrage transporting military equipment and repair materials from the Crimean Brigade, which the occupiers are still struggling to restore after previous Ukrainian sabotage operation. The Sea Baby is a versatile platform capable of carrying various weapon systems, including multiple rocket launchers, aerial drones, and large-caliber machine guns. Most importantly, it has once again proven its effectiveness, while the results of our operation are far greater than we can currently disclose. Everything will be revealed in due time, state the 13 main directorate of the SBU Department of Military Counterintelligence. So now to the battlefield. So Kursk region of Russia. On December 10, Russian forces released footage purportedly taken in Plokhovo, located south of the Ukrainian stronghold in the Kursk region. Notably, this video has not yet been geolocated, and the soldier appeared to be standing ceremonially, unlike recently lost Ukrainian-held villages that typically come under heavy fire involving drones. The video also featured that flag of the so-called Arbat Battalion, previously noted for liberating settlements that were never occupied. However, another video showing a flag being raised does appear to have been filmed at a cultural center in Plokhovo, where Ukrainian soldiers were photographed in August. It's possible that Plokhovo was captured in a manner similar to Darino on the opposite end of the stronghold, where a similar flag raising ceremony was held and fighting continues. One battle that was described by drones operator of the 225th Separate Assault Battalion. Battle for Darino, Kursk direction. The enemy continues offense operation, this time using tracked vehicles. The assault began at night under harsh weather conditions during heavy snowfall. Russian forces constructed a pontoon brigade across the river to bring heavy equipment closer to our position. Our reconnaissance units detected enemy movements during the preparation stage, allowing command to deploy FPV drones to strike enemy vehicles. A precise hit on the lead vehicle held the column, forcing the remaining vehicles to maneuver. A subsequent strike on their trailing vehicle blocked the retreat path, significantly complicating the enemy situation. Coordinated action by all units effectively stopped the attack. As a result, the enemy suffered substantial losses in equipment, inflicting significant material damage. Ukrainian serviceman Stanislav Bunyatov described the situation in the Kursk region as follows. Assault in the Kursk operation zone occur daily. The levels of enemy preparation varies widely. Some demonstrate cohesion and quick decision-making, while others advance like sheep. It's satisfying to know they all die equally. Recently, our radio-electronic reconnaissance detected the likely presence of North Korean soldiers engaged in assault and suffering losses. Through visual confirmation and precise assault location have not yet been determined. Scandal. The former Deputy Director General of the Kursk Region Development Corporation, Igor Graben, responsible for constructing fortifications in the Kursk region, has been placed in pre-trial detention. Graben is accused under Article 285 of the Russian Criminal Code both of official power for unjustified spending on fortification construction. Media reports state that the official authorities duplicate payments totaling 164 million rubles for previous completed work. Graben has signed a contract with a subcontractor for work that had already been performed by another construction company. So now let's move to Kurachovo, one of the hardest for Ukrainian soldiers place on a battlefield. Deep State analysts have been released footage showing the corpus of Russian soldiers who failed to secure position in Uspenivka, located in the pocket on the southern edge of the Kurachovo settlement. Analysis comment on the situation. After capturing Dalnya, the enemy began advance towards Uspenivka to close the Uspenivka pocket and encircle all units within it. Simultaneously, Russian forces are attempting to achieve this from the Trudovoi direction, nearly capturing within their pocket only parts of Yelizhavetska and Romanivka remain, along with the entirety of Annivka and Veslyhai. The battle continues. So, Pokrovsk direction. Deep State also provided an assessment of the situation of the Pokrovsk front. The enemy continues to exert pressure on Shevchenko and advance toward Pokrovsk. Russian forces made gains between the village of Shevchenko and Vidrozhnya Novy Trud, expanding their control over the southern outskirts of Shevchenko. The accumulating of enemy infantry in this area suggests they aim to fully occupy the village, which served as a tactical objection in the advancing of Pokrovsk. Command of the Operation Tactical Group Donetsk would do well to use its resources more rationally and finally address the front segment where things continues to deteriorate. There is also pressure on Novotroitsk, which Russian forces have approached closely from the east. Predicting further movements is difficult. The enemy's primary goal is Pokrovsk, and their tactical approaches to capturing increasingly focus on a logistic. Likely, as one other front, the enemy will attempt to at least place the logistical roads to Pokrovsk under fire control to facilitate their capture of the city. Recently, Russian forces released footage of FPV drone strike on a train near Kotlinia. This is worth nothing, as it's mirrors incident in other cities. A simple prohibition on using certain roads could be a defense measure. A Ukrainian soldier and author of the Telegram channel Officer described the situation on the Pokrovsk front of December 9. There is little good news. Most of the Shevchenko has been taken by the Russian in just a few days. Novotroitsk is fully occupied by the enemy. They are trying to press forward from Pustinka. The infantry assault have transitioned to mechanized assault using vehicles. If this continues, the Russians will solidify their position south of Pokrovsk, from which only a few fields separate them. By the evening of December 9, Officer reported the occupation of Shevchenko by Russian forces. Russian forces have occupied the village of Shevchenko near Pokrovsk. A small part of the village remained in the gray zone, but only because it's a kill zone for the Russians. Our forces are not present there. So now to Velikaya Novoselka. Fighting continues near Velikaya Novoselka without significant changes on the front. The Russian No Context channel shared a video in which Russian soldiers reached a Ukrainian dugout in the vicinity of the settlement. Listen to their remarks. They're living the life here. What a bunker. Unbelievable. Trenches 3 meters deep. Look at all this food they have. All kinds of stuff. And we're staking there like idiots in those dungeons under the ground. And here they are living it up. We get a single can of stew per day. And they're having pineapples. If we try to speak about the battlefield in general, the SID channel Okohora published combat statistic by direction for the past weeks based on data from the Ukrainian General Staff. Percentage changes. 4% decrease in the number of combat engagements compared to the previous week. Most active front Kurachovo, 319 engagements. Least active front Siversk, 1 engagement. The pace of Russian advance in Ukraine has slowed to October levels. Last week, Russia force captured 90 square kilometers of territory in Ukraine, according to data from the Ukrainian Ascent Project Deep State, analyzed by the agency. This marks the slowest rate of advance since late October. For the second consecutive week, the speed of Russian progress has declined. The fastest Russian advance occurred in the southern part of Donetsk Oblast, where they captured nearly 50 square kilometers. Russian forces continued attempts to encircle Kurachovo and Velikaya Novoselka. According to Deep State, Ukrainian forces lost the village of Stary Turny, Ilinka and Novodmitrovka near Kurachovo, as well as Blagodatnya near Velikaya Novoselka. However, the Ukrainian army retook Novy Kamar near Velikaya Novoselka. Russian control expanded by 33 square kilometers in Pokrovsk and in Pokrovsk direction, Donetsk Oblast. Deep State confirmed that Russian forces captured Novopustinka and earlier the village of Berezky. Approximately 5 square kilometers were captured in Kharkiv Oblast. However, Ukrainian forces reclaimed the village of Novomlinsk in the Kupiansk district of Kharkiv Oblast. The last time Russia forced captured fewer than 100 square kilometers in a week was October 14 to 20, when they gained 75 square kilometers. Context: if the decline at the pace of Russia advance continues, it could alter the dynamics on the front. Since September, Russia's progress had been accelerating, culminating in October with the largest territorial gains since summer 2022. However, the trend has reversed in recent weeks. Over the past week, Russian forces failed to reduce the territory controlled by Ukrainian forces in the Kursk region, which remains at 546 square kilometers, according to Deep State data. The private military company PMC Spaniola, owned by Vladimir Putin, associates the Rotenberg brothers and known for its neo-Nazi views, has assumed a statement in support of Alexander Bastrykin, head of the investigative committee, and Vladimir Kolokoltsev, minister of internal affairs. The conflict arose after the head of Chechen, Ramzan Kadyrov, stated during a live broadcast that these officials are not in their rightful position, while commenting on the case of a 14-year-old Chechen teenager Muslim Murdiyev accused of hooliganism. The military organization Spaniola, along with all our logistical structures and supporting fan communities, believe that Ramzan Akhmatovich Kadyrov should apologize for the insult, lies, and attempts to protect clearly defined juvenile criminals who attack their peers on ethic grounds, the statement said. Spaniola also expressed dissatisfaction that federal officials and political, except for 2 regional deputies from Krasnodar Krai, didn't respond to Kadyrov's remarks. The deputies alleged faced pressure after voicing their objections. The neo-Nazi claimed that such statement by Kadyrov undermine national security and violate the principle of equity before the law. They called on Kadyrov to retract his words and emphasized their readiness to defend the interest of the state both on the battlefield and within the country. What is a Spaniola? Spaniola is a Russian armed formation participating in the war against Ukraine. It was created in spring 2022 as part of the Vostok battalion of the self-proclaimed DPR. Since 2023, recruitment for Spaniola has been conducted through the private military company Redut, and in 2024 it became part of the Russian Ministry of Defense Volunteer Corps at the 88th Reconnaissance and Sabotage Brigade. According to investigation by the outlet Imported Story, the organization may be linked to the state-owned Russian railways and the Rotenberg brothers, close associated of Vladimir Putin. In summer 2024, Spaniola registered as a limited liability company providing security consulting service. Spaniola is composed of football ultras, many of whom hold neo-Nazi beliefs. Its leader is Stanislav the Spaniard Orlov, a former member of the Red Blue Warriors fan group and participant in the Russian-Ukrainian conflict since 2014. The author Danil Bessonov shared details of a peculiar situation involving the prohibition of private vehicles on the front lines. Russian soldiers are now relying on a taxi driver for evacuation. There had already been much said about the ban of humanitarian and private vehicles in the military. I recently spoke with an officer from the DPR. He said a solution has been found. Our soldiers now have to find both taxi drivers willing to pick up the wounded from evacuation points and take them to hospitals. I express immense gratitude to these taxi drivers for their participation. I hope there won't be a ban on using taxis as well. The 155th Brigade shows no mercy even to its owner. A serviceman of the 155th Brigade, a separate Marine Brigade, infamous for its war crime against Ukraine soldier, Alexander Kadyrov, was held at the unit's location in handcuffs for a week and was repeatedly beaten. Alexander showed on video the marks of beating on his face and back. According to him, in addition to contract soldier present at the site, he was also assaulted directly by battalion commander Mikhail Butenko and his assistants, who used nunchucks during the beatings. They carried me to a radiator and started beating me with nunchuck, a belt, anything they could get their hands on. By applying physical violence, the commander forced the serviceman to incriminate himself, admitting to the possession of narcotics. They made me say something untrue that we have drugs on that day. In addition, Alexander was coerced into giving up his personal vehicle and signing a sale agreement. They took my car case and forced me to write a purchase agreement for the car. Despite having metal pillets in his leg and multiple shrapnel wounds, Alexander is scheduled to be deployed from Vladivostok to the combat zone on December 10. His relatives believe this is an attempt by the battalion commander to eliminate his victim and avoid accountability. Sergei Vasilievich Deptan, a serviceman and father of 4 minor children, attempted to terminate his contract with the Minister of Defense due to health issues, but his request was denied. The serviceman said that he had submitted all the necessary reports and documentation. We have written everywhere, but it's useless. All we get are replies saying the issue is under review. And that's it. Nothing else happened. Deptan traveled to Moscow to provide evidence of his health condition and address the situation, but was detained by police because his unit had declared him as being absent without leave. Sergei reported that the authorities constantly exert psychological pressure on him and his family, leading to a stroke. Police officers come to my home with automatic weapon, entered the house and psychologically traumatized my wife and children. He recorded a video from Moscow 66 hospital where he was admitted due to ischemic heart attack following another police visit. Z blogger Mikhail Polynkov reported that the Russian army has been routinely declaring missing soldiers as desert of a wall to lower official casualty numbers and avoid paying compensations. Such fraudulent schemes have even involved notable commanders, including the legendary leader of the 8th Regiment Puzik. In Russia, a criminal case has been opened against a military doctor accused of implanting shrapnel fragments into soldiers to fake combat injuries, eligible for financial compensation. According to Investigate Committee Chairman Alexander Bastrykin, after such false information was entered into official documents, enabling soldiers to receive payouts. Investigators claim the scheme resulted in the theft to over 12 million rubles. The identities of the doctor and accomplices were not disclosed, and Bastrykin did not specify when or where the case was filed. And so Russian soldiers, when they back to Russia, what they do? Of course, they kill people that are around them. A former Wagner PMC fighter, drunk with the partner because he was bored, then fatally assaulted an elderly neighbor with a metal pipe. Dmitry Balashov, a resident of Moscow's Perovos district, served in Wagner PMC from September 2022 to March 2023, returning home after being concussed by a grenade dropped from UAV. Over time, he began hosting random occurrences in his home to drink vodka. He lived with his partner and a 65-year-old neighbor. On March 11, 2024, after drinking 4 bottles of vodka, Dmitry woke up around 10 a.m. and beat his partner with a metal rod from an old chair. He explained that he was bored, as he had woken up first while his partner was still sleeping and did not get up quickly. Afterward, the group continued drinking vodka and homemade moonshine. During this time, Dmitry and the elderly neighbor got into an argument, leading to the neighbor being totally beaten with a pie. The partner fled to apartment during the altercation and called for an ambulance. Balashov declared that she would never return home. Police arrived at the scene and arrested the Wagner veteran. The elderly neighbors succumbed to his injuries in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. In court, Balashov expressed remorse and mitigating factors, including commendations he had received from the LNR and Wagner PMC. He was sentenced to 9 years in a high-security penal colony. So it's all for today. Subscribe, push the like button and write a comment. See you next day. It was Mikhail Nacke. Bye.